grandparents on my parents on my dad's side, they're buried over here on the right, the Holloways. And my mother's side, the Powells, which are buried over here. Vernon Powell was, he owned a feed store, and he was a county commissioner back then. He actually was in charge when they built the dam at the river. But I graduated from high school here in 1968. I know I don't look that old.
Oh.
But I joined the fire department in Kerrville in '73 and was there 35 years. Been retired 16 years, and I've spent a lot of time down at Centerpoint. I've lived in Kerrville, been in Kerrville for a good while. But a lot of my family members are still here. And as time goes by, there's fewer of us. But the cemetery, the oldest part of it is back up here on the top end. But in, got a real cheap, in 1872, 3 pieces were, the cemetery was donated, and it was the Cook family, the Burney family, and the McElroy family. And in 2001, Butch and Betty Lackey donated this section over here. It's on the other side of the road, and it's mostly all open. We're running out of space. As you can look around, this is not what you would call a perpetual care cemetery. But we do take care of it, keep it low, and that cost us $1,300 to try to roll this out. Which really doesn't seem, isn't that bad? Well, in the 1880s, a board was formed, and then in 2001, it was formalized, adopting the charter and bylaws. And it is under the Charter 711 of the Texas Health and Safety Code. Mr. Burney wanted to donate more land, but at that time, the president said, well, no, we can't take any more than that because you throw us up into a different taxing authority. Right now, where we don't have to pay a lot of taxes. But if you throw that in, it throws under more regulations. And because of that, we can regulate who can actually be buried here. We don't allow people that do not have any connection to Centerpoint buried here. I mean, you can't be, say, like from New York, you come down here and you say, oh, I like that cemetery, I'm going to be buried there. Well, that can't happen. You have to either have lived here, worked here, have relatives that have lived or worked here, and have a real connection with Centerpoint. The only exception to that is if you look around, those crossings right there, those are Texas Rangers. We allow Texas Rangers to be buried here, and we have 36 of them buried here, which is more than any other cemetery in Texas. And we get requests pretty regular for Texas Rangers to be buried here. I know there's something else I want to tell you. Oh, most of the resources we get, the money we get to keep this up is by selling plots. And so therefore, if we don't sell plots, we don't have money to maintain the cemetery. Recently, we removed about 25 dead trees in here. And if you notice, the road is all nice and neat. We just completed that several months ago. That alone cost us $29,000. So we depend on the people to help support their donations. The community foundation in Kerrville has a fund set aside that people, if they want to make donations to the cemetery, they can put it in that fund, and it's tax deductible. And it's under the Centerpoint Cemetery Fund. If any y'all know of anybody or interested in helping us that way, we have a gentleman that is paid. He works here. Well, he's here almost all the time, but his name is on the building over there, Steve Langenay. We hired him, and he is in charge of selling the plots, marking the plots, and if somebody wants to be buried out here, he comes and marks it for the funeral homes, and then there is a $200 interment fee to actually be buried here. The plots cost $700, and if you look around, part of the problem we have, say like Keens, for example, y'all have a big area here. They probably you'll notice that there, one of your relatives was a Confederate. He was a monument right behind this one. Marked that he was a private, I believe, in the Confederate War. There's different ones. You see the one right behind you, the bronze one. That is a World War I veteran. But unfortunately, you see things like this one right here. We don't really know what happened to this. We think someone in a mower might have hit it and knocked it over. It's been like this for a long, long time. We don't have the money to repair it, so it's up to the family members. And unfortunately, most family members don't come out here after many years. But this one was 1889, I believe this is. So we got a lot of them up back up in there. There's some that are in the 1700s. There are some up there that used to have wooden crosses on them, but they're no longer there. The crosses aren't, and we don't have an idea who is buried there. So, and that's another thing that Steve does is he'll come out here and when they're digging the grave, make sure that they're digging in the right spot. Back on the other side, there we go. Oh, the well over there. Someone was being buried and they discovered someone was already buried in their plot. That was the old record keeping that we had was just cards and it wasn't very accurate. Steve has done a great job. He's computerized it all. It makes it a lot easier. I really enjoyed, in fact, Eden's implement store. I used to go in there as a kid all the time. And mostly because it was too hot outside, I'd go in. It wasn't really a lot cooler in there because they didn't have air conditioning. But they had let us come in there and drink water and mess around. But now, have any of y'all been in it since? Y'all are going to go eat there, right? Yeah. It's a lot different than it used to be. Now, we've eaten there several times. The food's good. The atmosphere is really nice. Yes, ma'am.
What do you have to do to level the headstones?
Well, they'll have to come in here and actually move it, and then put some more. They'll either put a concrete padding underneath it, and then set it back down. We've actually had to do that with a couple of them. And sometimes, in order to get in, they have to move a headstone to get into a plot because it may be out here in the middle somewhere, and you can't get to it. So they have to actually move it a little bit and then put it back. You'll see a lot of them are leaning out here. Some of it because of the trees. Everybody wants to be buried under a tree, but then next thing you know, the root system, like over there, it really kind of messes it up.
So like you'd have to...
Well, you'd have to get a hold of, I tell you, if you call that number on the Steve Langley on that deal, he could probably get you in contact with somebody that can do it. He might be able to do it himself because he does dig graves. That's one of his part-time jobs. He's retired firefighter also.
Are there any famous Texas Rangers or famous people that you know of in here?
Oh,
Local heroes?
I really don't know because, to be honest with you, I haven't checked all the Texas Rangers deal, but you're welcome to walk around and look at any of them.
How can you identify a Texas Ranger?
The cross.
These
the middle
crosses right here.
They're the only ones with the middle.
Only a Texas Ranger has that little cross, and they'll have a badge on it.
Yeah,
on the front of it. We don't have a list of who's buried here.
Oh, you don't?
No.
So no way to find somebody that you want to find?
Well, now Steve he was able to guide me over here. That Steve Langley, he's got a list of all the plots, and he can tell you, where it is.
In that mailbox, there's a binder, and it shows all the plot numbers,
Oh, yeah.
and then there it shows all the names as a cross-reference, so you can look in that mailbox at that binder.
Yes, and I'm not sure how updated it is, but that'll give you a good idea of where it is. Now, where's everybody from? I know some of you, but where are y'all from?
Texas.
Houston. Everybody's Texas?
Kerrville.
Good.
Austin.
Just about.
Santo.
Sanchez. Where is that?
Long-
Yeah, that's the point.
Palo Pinto,
I know where that is. Yeah.
San Antonio.
They'll show the map sometimes in Texas. Rain, they blow it up. got its advantages, but it has a few disadvantages. But you get to know everybody, and the disadvantage, everybody knows you. You know, you can't. I'll get home and my mother would say, "What were you doing down at the river?" Huh? How do you know I was at the river? Well, I just have my sources. Yeah.
I'm a retired firefighter also.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Where from?
Plano.
Plano? Well, I retired in Kerrville. I was a fire chief here for 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, the fire department went from 21 employees to 75.
Wow.
Went from about 150 calls to almost 20,000.
Wow.
Well, we took over EMS in '94, and that, you know, things have been crazy.
I didn't give them a day over 20.
Yeah. I enjoyed what I was doing, but I looked at my retirement and thought, I mean, you're working for $50 a month.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Put up with all this stuff.
Well,
It's a great profession. I'll tell you
it
what.
was most of my time was in the Corps, but I'm in construction also.
Yeah.
I had 2 jobs for 20 years, now I just have 1. But I'm also a husband
Yeah, but that's another job.
and a father.
He's learning.
Yeah, my grandson is a firefighter in Travis County. But he's the only one that followed in my footsteps.
Good question.
Can you tell us why rangers are asking to come here?
Well, they discovered that there were several rangers that were buried here. So my aunt, she started doing research on it. Well, and they did an article about Texas Rangers buried in Center Point. And the next thing you know, some of them wanted to be buried here, along with some of their friends. Caldwell is one of them. That was a Texas Ranger, and they have a big, you know, there's a big Caldwell family here. And so next thing you know, man, actually some have actually been interned and moved here
Really?
from other places.
Is that a family memorial deal over there? Or?
Yes.
Lake?
And we're working on rules out here because there's some grave sites that are a little, they got too much stuff in it, let's put it that way. And we're working on some different rules to help change that. I've been the president of the association now going on 5 years. Been on the board almost 10 years, I guess. But we're all local. In fact, 4 of them on the board are all my classmates. We're trying to keep it. We're going to have to start looking for younger people. Well, we meet once a year whether we need to or not.
I like it. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Feed us.
Yeah. But it's a great town, a great organization. And, you know, they got city sewer here now, city water. They incorporated it about 20 years ago, and several people didn't like having to follow rules, so they unincorporated it. Oh, and for some of y'all didn't know, Centerpoint at one time was bigger than Kerrville. It was one of the largest cities in this area because the railroad ran through, and it's called Centerpoint because it's halfway between Bandera and Fredericksburg and Kerrville and Comfort. And it originally was named Zanzibar, and I'm sure glad they changed that. Or it'd be too hard to spell. But yeah, if you'll notice when you go through town on the left, the big black 2-story building was a bank. They had 4 banks here at one time. And the main street, it was before my time, but the main street was solid businesses on both sides of the road. Up to, well, where the mini mart is, or right there, Dosa, what's that, Mexican food restaurant? Dos Amigos. They have really good food in there, by the way. Their shrimp is really good on Fridays and Saturdays. But if anybody else have any other questions, I'll be glad to answer. Well, I'm glad y'all are here. The Edens family, I knew them fairly well. A little older, so I didn't know the daughters, but they were really, he was always really nice to me and treated me good. And we'd go by their house all the time and we'd comment on, man, they sure have a nice house. And I'd go down to the Slees, which is down the road, because one of Terry Slee was a friend of mine. We hung out, but yeah, I'm fortunate I was born here. And great place to live. Now, it's changed a lot since I was here. There's more people here. The Hispanic population is, when I was in school, there were only 3 families. Now it's 70% Hispanic here now. So and there's nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong. It's a nice little community.
What's the story with the hot rod shop?
Well, that guy.